Neighbor kid tangles with soccer mom and loses truck. Alicia Holloway was your ordinary single mom living in Arlington, Virginia. She'd worked hard to get everything she had, and her life was comfortable. She lived with her 2 sons in a friendly, quiet neighborhood. Her house was beautifully large and at the end of the cul-de-sac. She enjoyed the peace that came with the community until her new neighbors moved in. At first glance, Alicia's neighbors were your typical upper-middle-class family. They had 4 grown-up sons, 3 of which drove their cars alongside their parents. The last born, a teenager in high school, didn't have a car. But one afternoon, everything took a drastic turn, ushering the worst neighborhood experience for Alicia and her family. Alicia was hanging out in her backyard one afternoon, listening to a chapter from her favorite audiobook, when she heard the ground shake. A loud growl rented the air, prompting her to take off her earbuds. The ground shook again, a truck's engine, as loud as an aircraft, breaking the afternoon's peace. What was going on? Like any curious mind, Alicia set everything aside and hurried around the house. She expected her neighbors to be bringing in more furniture when she saw it. A massive brightly colored truck was pulling up into the neighbor's driveway. Of course, Alicia paid it no mind. She returned to listening to her audiobook, unaware of the trouble already brewing. As the clock read 8 p.m., Alicia heard a knock on her front door. She hurried over only to meet her neighbor. The man smiled at Alicia and apologized for bothering her at night. "It's nothing," Alicia answered. But she also apologized for not welcoming him in. She explained her son's sickness and her worries over it being contagious. The man nodded in understanding. "I have a favor to ask," he said. "Sure," Alicia said. "How can I help you?" Although Alicia didn't know much about her new neighbors, she'd made an effort to at least introduce herself and her sons when they moved in. Although she loved to stay indoors after work, she had a great relationship with everyone in the cul-de-sac. If her neighbors needed anything within her reach, she would help. "My son just turned 16, the man smiled. "I'm sure you saw the truck we bought him." "I did," Alicia exclaimed. "It's such a pretty truck. Quite big. Does he like it?" "Yes, he does," her neighbor said. "It's what he wanted. It's so big, and that's what I wanted to talk to you about. We were wondering if we could use your driveway for the truck. We've been getting complaints from the other neighbors that it's so big they can't get around it." Alicia couldn't believe what she was hearing. Each house in the neighborhood had a garage, a driveway, and ample space on the street for parking. She hoped the neighbor would understand her view. "I would like to help," Alicia began. "But the truck is quite big, and I need my driveway at least 4 times a day." She detailed her daily activities that warranted her use of the driveway, stating that although she'd love to help, the request was beyond her. "You drive a small car," the man said. "You can park it outside for now until I come up with a better alternative." Still, Alicia refused. Irritated, the man asked her to be a considerate neighbor. Alicia would have heard him out, but there was this authority in his voice that made it sound like he was giving her no option on the matter. Did he decide that he was going to park in her driveway despite her decision? "I use my driveway when I leave and come home," Alicia said with finality. "I can't access my garage without it. I also have issues with depth perception, and your son's truck is so big I am afraid I might scratch it." The neighbor tried to insist, but Alicia wouldn't budge. The discussion became heated, and seeing that this wasn't going anywhere, Alicia wished the man good night. Alicia returned to her son, bringing him soup to soothe his pain. But as she sat by his side, listening to him talk about his interests, she thought about what the man would do. Hoping to avoid any splashback when trouble came, she did the only thing she could at the moment. She pulled her laptop, ready to set things straight. Alicia emailed the homeowners association about the matter before it escalated as a cautionary step. She then went to bed. She woke up ready for work the next day. She prepared her boys for school, and they all hopped into her car. But when she rolled up her garage door, she couldn't believe what was standing imposingly behind them. The truck was blocking Alicia and her kids. Fuming, Alicia took photos of the vehicle on her property. She went to knock on her neighbor's door. The man opened, a surprised look on his face as if he couldn't see the brightly colored Ford on Alicia's driveway. Alicia didn't even speak. She only motioned at the vehicle with a grimace. The neighbor called his son to remove the truck. But before Alicia left, she warned him and his dad that she'd have the vehicle towed if they parked in her driveway again. She updated the HOA on the situation and headed to work. The truck was parked exactly where it was in the morning, blocking Alicia's garage. She stomped over to her neighbor's house. The neighbor's wife received her this time, rudely asking why Alicia was disrupting her family's dinner. Alicia calmly asked her to have her son remove his vehicle from her property. She also issued the same warning she had in the morning. But when Alicia got in the house, she found her son's condition had worsened. She quickly strapped him into the car and headed to the emergency room. She spent hours at the hospital, waiting for the doctors to tell her what was wrong. After a long wait, her son's results were out. They would leave Alicia in tears. Pneumonia, the doctor declared. But he promised Alicia that the disease was still in its early stages. With proper care, her son could beat it. The doctor prescribed a few pills, and Alicia and her son went home. She wiped her tears with relief, seeing that her son's condition was manageable and her neighbors finally respected her. She had no idea what was happening back home. Alicia's son's diagnosis was not as severe as she thought, and soon they were on their way back home. But as they drove up to their neighborhood, a familiar sight greeted them. The large, brightly colored truck was in Alicia's driveway again, glinting in the dark as Alicia's headlights struck it. Knowing she'd tried to play fair, she decided enough was enough. Alicia took more photos and videos of the truck and updated the HOV. She also called a 24-hour tow truck service. It was an hour past midnight, but the tow truck arrived and got to work. With that part done, Alicia put her kids to sleep, prepared for the next day, and soon retired to bed. The consequence of her actions would wake her up in the morning. A loud thump and insistent bell ringing woke Alicia up the following day. She didn't need to guess who it was. She made her way downstairs and found her neighbor and son furiously banging at her door. Alicia didn't bother with opening the door. She entered the kitchen and fixed herself a hot cup of coffee as the knock shook her door. After a refreshing drink, she went to face her neighbor. "How can I help you?" Alicia asked sweetly, but the two glared at her. "You stole our truck," her neighbor barked. "I believe the word you're looking for is towed," Alicia answered, smiling. Her neighbor formed a fist, seemingly controlling himself. "I will sue you," he hissed, but Alicia still held her smile. She had all the protection she needed if this case went to court. "Go ahead." "I am pressing charges for trespassing," Alicia said. "I have evidence, photos, videos, and emails." She was even recording this conversation as it was happening. "If you want your vehicle, you can find it at the tow truck yard." With that, Alicia closed the door and returned to bed. She hoped her neighbor knew he'd kicked the hornet's nest. Alicia received a response from the HOA. They apologized for everything she and her family had gone through, asking her if she was open to seeing them first before pressing any charges. They assured her she was in the right, owing to all the information she'd sent their way. They were ready to back her if she wanted to take her neighbor to court. The HOA called a meeting, which Alicia and her neighbor attended. They reprimanded the man for his unsavory behavior, stating that whatever financial reach he thought he had meant nothing here. The man apologized for everything, and even though Alicia didn't press charges, he never parked the large truck in her driveway again.